Hi, welcome to the PCVue Podcast. Let's Engineer. Today, we have the privilege of having Rick Doering, plant manager at CSP. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm always glad. I'm going to turn it over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about what you're doing and a little bit about how you started out in this industry.
All right. My name is Rick Doering. I am the plant manager currently for CSP's Conneaut, Ohio facility. CSP is a lightweight composites manufacturer for the automotive, heavy truck, and marine industries. We provide a variety of lightweight composite solutions, body panels, and underbody shields, all kinds of products for those three segments of industry.
Okay.
As far as my beginnings, I walked into a plant supplying steering wheels and shift levers for Toyota Corollas and Camrys in May of 1993, and they told me to put adhesive on a steering wheel. I was a temp out of high school, and I just have learned everything that I could about everything that I did and became the subject matter expert in pretty much every job that I did. I just wanted to learn it as well as anyone. I made my way up through low-level leadership positions and then technical positions, ended up in engineering roles all the way up to director of engineering for multi-million-dollar companies. Yeah, every other job in my career has been operations and engineering, so I've got to experience both of that. I just kind of go where the next challenge is and have learned a lot along the way and try to now at this point in my career pass on that knowledge to others and provide some helpful insights on things that we've seen, because sometimes those hard emotional lessons learned are the only way you're going to learn them, right?
Starting out just taking steering wheels with the adhesive and moving. You must have seen from that time where it's a very manual process, right? And now, as far as just talking about technology and what has happened over the years, maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the things that you've seen and as far as how technology has advanced over the years.
Yeah, robots replacing people, right? So as we started out in looking at automation, the cost justification was always, what is the cost of a robot to the cost of an individual doing that job? Particularly when those jobs are three shift operations. If you can replace three people at, call it $50,000 in a year, getting a little more expensive now. The cost of people have gone up. The cost of robots have come down substantially. In the beginning, those robots were designed to be inside a cage with light curtains, and there was interface. I even had some friends where their father was killed by a robot being inside that cage, because the robot at that point didn't care if you were in the way. It was going to go to
No
the
sensing at
next
all, right?
point. So robots have come down. People have gotten much more familiar with how to use those robots. There's lower cost robot sides, and then there's, the Fanics and the AGVs that are probably some of the more popular, larger companies. And then now getting into what we would call a cobot or a collaborative robot that will stop if it bumps into you, and it can stand next to an operator and exchange parts as if it were a person. I think that's the next step into these humanoid robotic solutions that you're seeing that Tesla and some of these other folks are working on. But I think the cobot entities are great. They're seeing a lot more of that in warehousing. Had a demonstration about a month ago with a company that does a lot of warehousing that's automated. So, a fork truck that no longer requires a fork truck driver and can think critically about its path through the facility, not just to a GPS coordinate or a magnetic strip on the floor. This thing can think about how it's going to traverse through your facility and look before it crosses an aisleway to make sure that there's nothing in the way. Like, as AI technology integrates into some of these automated solutions, the opportunities are just mind-boggling. And then inspection. That's a whole nother side.
Yeah, let's dive a little into starting with the AGVs, automated guided vehicles, because that's
Yeah.
they've been around a little bit longer, right? And they're moving around, and now and they're usually transporting. I mean, an AGV usually taking stuff back and forth. Is that normally what an AGV is doing, delivering material?
So when I started seeing AGVs being used, It was taking it from one robot or manipulator and putting it on that unit and then taking it to another station, and then someone would take it off and it would just loop
Right.
back. And it was essentially
Okay.
a conveyor that didn't require being on a conveyor. What we're seeing now in these automated guided carts, particularly in the assembly arena, in the past, we would build these dedicated cells that are designed to be specific to a part, and it can only ever be for that part. And they were very specific to sliding rail systems or, different types of conveyor transfer systems. What you can do with these AGVs is build a cart, and then whatever nesting that you want on top of that, take it through an assembly operation that is much more capital intensive and much less tooling intensive and much more adaptable. So if you want to add a station, in the past you would add these rails and it was millions of dollars to make these alterations to this cell, where now you can just add a cart, put whatever tools you need next to it, and you can keep going. Even if you had to add the cart, because you just make it one more stop. We're still seeing the magnetic strips on the floor where you're designing and you'll put a puck in the floor where it should stop.
Mm-hmm.
But even that with AI is going away, and the travel of these carts through whatever area that you want them to go through is becoming much more intelligent. But the adaptability of these work cells to become the next thing, an automotive program has 2 to 5 years generally, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
on to the next thing. And most in the past of what you had would just be scrapped and you would start over. Where I'm seeing through the use of AGVs or AGCs that they're much more adaptable to the next thing, or modifications for much less money than you would have in a dedicated cell.
So you have people on staff that program these that are basically engineers that are working on that. Are they specialized there? Do they do a bunch of other things too? I mean, what kind of staffing does it take to keep an HEV going and programming it for like maybe a new process?
Well, the engineering is getting much more user friendly. Let's take a step back to the collaborative robots real quick.
Okay.
In the
Yes.
past, to program, you have your controller and you got to know all these XYZ coordinates. These collaborative robots, you grab onto it and you move it to where you want it to go, and you push a button and it remembers that. And then you move it to its next point and you push a button and it remembers that. So, at this point in my career, I don't spend a lot of time on the floor, and I could go out and program this thing to do its series of functions. I think if teams don't have on-site controls engineers at this point, then, you need those folks, right? One of the things that we talk about is the ratio of direct to indirect labor
Okay.
and in the past we've had this mindset of 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 or whatever that industry average is for how many direct people you have that are adding value to the part, to the indirect people that are doing things like programming robots or resetting robots or these indirect technical functions. That ratio is becoming much more skewed because now you have much more automation making the parts and many less people involved. So you do need more of those folks that have some technical aptitude. But I'm also seeing with the HMIs and the interfaces, they're much more user friendly, and the people that are coming into them already have such a high aptitude just from using things like their phone or other electronic devices that it's all becoming so intuitive and user friendly that it becomes more easy all the time.
So with the collaborative, okay, talking about the AGVs and the co robots and so on. And what kind of sensing, what kind of data are you pulling from the robots themselves? I mean, do they have sensing on them that are you looking at data from what they're doing, or what they, as far as, I don't know, what kind of data you'd be looking at versus, I mean, you have the productivity side, obviously, you're going to see what they're doing, but do you get other types of data from any kind of sensing, like temperatures, pressures, or anything from the actual robots themselves? Or is that still separated?
Well, it really comes down to there's a MES or manufacturing excellence software systems that are interfacing a lot with machine software, whether you're using, an Epicor, SAP, there's different interfaces. Plex is kind of an all-encompassing version that's pulling a lot of that data into whatever you want and then using AI in the background to analyze that data. So you're not even have to run reports anymore. You're just telling AI what report you want or what data you want, and it'll analyze it faster than you could write a SQL report. You used to have a degree in nonsense to be able to go write these SQL reports, and now you
Right,
can just tell
right.
AI to go write it for me, which is really incredible. So the data is really whatever you want it to be, and then there's a lot of specialization and then generalization of people expanding and contracting. And I'll say that by like an ERP system we used to call an MRP system, right? And then we're saying, no, it's entire resource management planning, enterprise resource management. That includes your PM module, that includes your quality module, all of these other things where small companies started out giving you a specific data set or a significant specific management tool, then SAP will buy that company and make it part of their platform. Or Plex will buy that company and make it part of their platform. Rather than going out and inventing that from scratch, they'll just buy it and then make it adaptable into what they're doing. So you'll see little offshoots of these different companies like an MES, but then a company like IQMS will go buy that real-time data set and then attach it to their machine, and now it's just part of your ERP system. So I've seen a lot of that expansion and contraction over time, but the data is just endless, really, with the MES on what you can gather, and then
So really, by just you can get a report for your supply chain, your quality, your productivity, what you did down to the moment, what you did that for a week, for a month. And so you get these reports, and it'll give you charts and everything.
absolutely.
I mean, it's pretty crazy what you could do now with AI. So as far as looking at some of the reporting ability and being able to put in your format, what are some of the challenges with the data? I mean, as far as where we are now, because I know we've come so far, but where are some of the gaps that you see still that we still need to kind of bridge?
Well, measuring what matters, and it's getting easier to collect data. In the past, particularly when data management was more manual, I would find that we would collect a lot of data that we didn't do a lot with. And then you're just applying all these resources, and then you get so much of an influx of data. I think I see what we're doing more is scaling back to really what do we focus on? What do we want to focus on that matters, that moves the needle? You know,
Hmm.
from a preventative maintenance perspective, a good example, attribute data, did we or did we not do a preventative maintenance activity? But that
Hmm.
doesn't tell you whether that mean time between failure and mean time to repair got better, right? And that's just basic TPM type stuff. But that's evident throughout all of data collection. Are we really looking at the things that move the needle? Are we hyper focused on the data that drives behavior that makes money, right? You want, if your data isn't driving the behaviors that you need to drive energy to a specific set of behaviors that improves your safety, improves your quality, improves your productivity, that's what you want to be doing with the data, and not, looking at a whole host of things that just don't matter.
So, as far as, I think we were talking about what matters, right? I mean, you have to be smart enough to frame the questions, and I mean, how do you frame those questions? Is it sometimes trial and error, or just from your experience being in, the seat you're in? When you're framing the questions, I mean, maybe you can give some examples. How do you frame a question where you're looking for something specific or something general, but where it's what matters versus what doesn't matter?
Well, I think in large companies, and I've worked both in large organizations and small organizations, you don't always get to choose, right? Something
Okay.
matters to someone for some reason. So you may spend a lot of time gathering data for someone else that you don't necessarily know why that data matters.
Hmm.
It matters to them. It might not necessarily matter to you, or maybe you don't understand how that data applies to you. So, particularly like for my morning meeting with my team, I pick one daily measurable and one monthly month to date metric that everyone in every department on my team reports out. You can go through a whole laundry list of things that
Hmm.
matter, as important as something like TRIR is in safety, right? What's your total
Okay,
recordable
I'm
incident
going to
rate?
ask you. I'm going to ask you to TRIR. Explain that to our
Total
audience.
recordable incident rate.
There you go.
That
Thank you.
number has value and it means something to somebody.
Hmm.
But in my morning meeting, what I care about is, did we have any incident that we should report out today? Ultimately, I care and OSHA cares what that number is.
Hmm.
But in that morning meeting, when my team is standing around and they have 10 minutes to get out what needs to happen in the morning, did we have any near miss incidents? Did we have any fires? Did we have any injuries? Do we have just something that we need to talk about? On my HR metric, I care how many people I have on roll compared to my value. That's my month to date metric. I care how
Hmm.
many people clocked in yesterday.
Okay.
Right? I don't care what my turnover rate is. I don't care what my absenteeism rate. I don't care about all of these metric numbers and how they're trending. Yes, in a setting I do, but in my morning meeting, I need to know how many people I have on roll and how many people clocked in. My maintenance metric, I don't care what my downtime percentage. I care, do I have any critical equipment down today?
Right now. Right now.
Right? Do I have a
What can
piece
you
of
do today?
equipment down that we need to discuss? And then in other meetings, we get into more of that trended data, but really scaling it back to what matters today that I need to focus energy on so that I can sit back and look at a whole bunch of trended data to know that, my upper and lower control limits are in line with where I want to go and what I want to do with the business. But I find that on a day-to-day basis, more of a binary, are we winning or are we not? Fourth and long can mean a lot of different things depending on what the scoreboard says.
Right.
And if your
Right.
scoreboard is so cluttered, I just want to know whether I'm winning or losing. If I'm up by two, or I'm down by two, or I'm up by 30, that can mean a lot of different things in fourth and long.
Right. Right.
But if I don't know
Right.
what the scoreboard says, I don't know whether to throw the Hail Mary, take a knee, or punt.
Yeah. And having that data, you could ask the right questions before you go into that meeting, and most of, or somebody asked the right questions. Hopefully you have people asking them for you too at that meeting. So everybody knows the game plan, right? Yeah, because getting everybody on the same page, which isn't always easy. And that's why you're where you are. You can get people going that direction. Because now when we talk about AI and now how AI is becoming bigger and bigger on that side. And really the challenges of AI, because we're talking about all the good stuff you're getting. What about asking questions? I mean, do you find that AI sometimes tries to answer questions that it doesn't have all the answer to? I mean, how smart do you have to be, looking at this data that comes back from AI?
Well, I think the AI that I interact, and I use different versions of AI every single day, whether
Okay.
it's ChatGPT, Copilot, different AI solutions that we have running in the background. I'm kept myself very up to date on, and I interact, and I find that for the most part that it gives you back responses that are very digestible, and it speaks in a way, and it's designed to speak to you in a way that can make sense. The better you frame the question and the more professional, or you can take it down a rabbit hole where it'll start giving you responses, and it kind of tests your knowledge and ability as it responds to you to know what kind of level that it's responding to. So I think that part of it's been great. If you ask it simple questions, it gives you simple answers. And the more complicated you make the question, the more complicated it will give you back in the response. And we're going from AI to AGI, general intelligence, to now ASI, super intelligence, which is just crazy. The Glock 4 that they just started talking about with some of what Tesla's doing is insane. But I think for the most part, the AI is meant to be a good user interface that's intuitive, to the capabilities of the person that's asking the questions. And how you frame the question with AI is everything.
And
The
I don't
big
know,
thing
maybe,
is,
sorry, I was going to say, I'll let you go because I was say that is how you frame that question is, I mean, is everything, right? And I guess we have to learn along with the AI too. We have to kind of learn how to do that right, and basically ask the right questions.
yeah, the big thing that I see coming is machine learning and inspection. In the past, we had to wait for the cameras to catch up to the AI, and one couldn't go without the other. And
Hmm.
the ability for a camera to find a defect on a part is something that I'm finally seeing that is capable, where in the past it wasn't, because the clarity of the camera to find a small defect on a part, it was very limited. But now you can teach the AI to not only see the defect, but understand whether or not that defect is a bad part or a good part. And it'll say, and the cameras have got good enough where it can see, 1.5 millimeter piece of dirt on a part, which would
Yeah,
be a
it's
reject,
crazy.
or zero point 0.7, whatever it is. But you can teach the AI to look at it just like you would teach a human, and then now make a decision, right? Because it'll say, yeah, I see that, it's there, but I'm going to allow it because it meets this criteria. And you put, hundreds of parts through and are teaching it along the way, yes, this is good, or no, this is bad. And if it questions anything, it'll stop and say, hey, I have a question about this part. I'm not sure what to do, whether you want me to reject it or pass it. And then over time, it learns what you wanted it to do. And now it'll make that same decision in the future. And the more you do it, the more intelligent it gets, the more capable it becomes. That is where I think that machine learning aspect is really going next on inspection. We used
And
to be so
being
tied to lighting as well with the cameras that you couldn't inspect black on black or certain aspects, or you'd be doing all these different things with lights trying to get the cameras to see the defects, and now they're just able to see them.
it's amazing just the advancements of the technology. And also, what about seeing trends? In other words, you could see it's trending because it used to be, remember SPC? That was statistical process
Absolutely.
control. Now that can go in the AI where it could basically see that trend while it's happening and predict it prior to you even, because SPC, you're kind of trying to get it right. 5 out of 7 or whatever all the different Western Electric rules were, where now they could actually do more advanced mathematics to see these trends and then I guess alert you or stop and say, hey, before you're making bad material. Are you seeing I mean, are you seeing your quality getting better and better as time goes by because of AI?
Yeah, so in the past, right, like if you wanted to do an X bar and R chart, or you would have to
Yeah.
plot out your data points, and then you would have to analyze those. AI already knows how to do that. AI already knows what an X bar and R chart is. They already know, if you tell AI to apply SPC to this data set, it's going to spit it out to you in as many ways as you want it to, as simple or as complicated as it can be, in your ability to do that. Or take a data set and just analyze for CP or CPK or
Hmm.
EPK. Like, you just give it the data and tell it, give me the CPK of this data set, and it just gives it to you in seconds. Not this big long spreadsheet where you're hand typing in a bunch of data and trying
Right.
to come up with something and then hope that it's right. It's going to look at it and tell you every single thing. Okay, give me the median, give me the standard deviation, give me, and it'll just generate it all for you in a
Yeah.
matter of seconds.
Yeah. And having been part of the SPC world for so many years back. I mean, I'll age myself a little, starting in the 80s, when it first became, it was a very slow process, right? You had to put in, then with the SCADA systems, we kind of integrated it somewhat so we can get it somewhat real time, right? But we're still collecting whatever the data is, and where it was very select, right? Where now you could put it on any data that's coming in and it'll just figure it out for you. I mean, without having to do all the crazy setup, because it could look at the data and normalize it and say, this is what it is. This is what your curve is. this is what your X bar, this was your X bar, and you know, and boom, you have it, and it'll even figure out the limits for you. So it is pretty crazy with what you could do now with that. Okay, change the subject a little bit because I have to ask a question. Industry 4.0, it's still one of the topics. Maybe you could just give your views on Industry 4.0 and how you see it.
Yeah, it's not something I'm well versed to speak on, to be honest with you.
Okay. Okay.
That's not an area that.
And that what tells me is that even though people are talking about it, I mean, you kind of talked a lot about it within, with really with everything you're doing, and it's really that term isn't as important as what you're doing, and it's really the integration of of all your different modules, like you kind of mentioned with the with a lot of the ERPs now will bring those modules in. But you have a lot of different, like your SCADA down below. You have your robot programming. You have your supply chain. You have all this data, and really just kind of circling back to where this data is, where the data resides, because it's. And I don't even know if you really care that much anymore because it seems like you have the tools on top that's looking everywhere. Like when you ask the question, it's going to look into your ERP. It's going to look into your quality module. It's going to look into your maintenance, right? It's going to look at your attendance and all these things, right? Safety, as far as that goes. But really, the question I have is maybe, as far as being the plant manager, your relationship with your IT and that data and where the data is. I mean, is that something that, do you talk to your IT on a weekly basis, daily or whatever, on where that data is and the safety of your data?
Well, we have, corporate groups, and again, I don't want to get too much into specific of what we do, but certainly data protection is important. I've worked for multiple companies over the last 10 years that have been hit with malware issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're in trouble, right? You're scrambling to recover from those issues, the protection of that. And then when you lose data, then it's a struggle, right? I'm seeing a big migration from on-site servers into cloud-based systems that seem to be protected, but those aren't 100% immune either, because we know that there's been data centers that have been hit as well. But yeah, everything seems to be migrating over to more cloud-based systems, where back in the day you would buy a server and it would hold your ERP system on that server locally, and you would have a server room and you'd leave the door open with the fans on and hope to keep it cool enough to function so it wouldn't shut down. And
Oh, the power
now it
doesn't go
just
out.
kind of resides and the power goes out. Yeah, or you'd go in, they used to have the VHS tape that you'd put in and you'd back up the
Man,
days worth of
and
data.
now you're aging yourself.
Yeah, yeah. What's crazy is it wasn't that long ago, but yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and it is true. It is true how fast technology's moving, and really just talking about your industry, because composites is there's a lot of different ways with the composites, for anything from when you're talking about high tech materials to as far as the materials you're using for automotive, which I mean back 30 years ago that would have been considered really high tech, but it's not as high tech. Not. I'm just saying it's a I mean, as far as bringing that material in, and I don't know if you have any materials that are heat sensitive or anything like that that you need to put in the freezer and bring out, or anything at that level, or as far as keeping data and that side. If you could talk about it, I don't know.
Yeah, no, certainly there's temperature control that's required for the materials. We compound our own material. And in that compounding process, there's certainly a lot of controls that are in place.
Hmm.
Once it hits the manufacturing floor, it's less important than during that compounding phase.
Yes.
For us, the technology here is lightweighting, and that's the advancement that has happened over time. The density of those materials becoming lighter and lighter to be competitive with things like aluminum or, other lightweight materials. Our composite products are getting lighter and lighter, and that is everything, whether that's electrification or better gas mileage. That lightweighting capability that CSP provides, that is integral to what we do. And that material science is an integral part of our business in providing lightweight solutions that are also durable lightweight solutions and have a lot of properties like heat resistance in the end product that are valuable to the consumer.
Which makes you a leader while you're a leader in your field. I mean,
That's
while you're
right.
good at what you do. So what do you think the industry has in store in the future? I mean, where are we going?
For composites specifically or automotive
Well, I
automation?
mean, I'll say composites, but I mean, for automotive in general too. I mean, that's probably a bigger topic, but just maybe touch on it.
Yeah, I think, again, back to us with lightweighting is everything because regardless of what is propelling the automobile, it being lighter is good for the vehicle, whether that's being powered by gasoline or that's being powered by electricity or that's being powered by hydrogen, which I think is the next segment
Right.
that we'll explore. It seems like the current administration is stepping back away from electrification. It doesn't make sense. All these plants geared up for this big boom in electrification that just hasn't come to fruition. I mean, we've got plants all over North America. I'm not talking about my company, I'm talking about the OEMs
Yeah.
that are sitting, 20% less capacity because they geared up for this electrification that just didn't happen. And now the subsidies and the things that were part of the government programs that got taken away, I mean, I think that's only going to get worse, and we're going to see a bigger push back to gasoline power. And then I think ultimately it will land in hydrogen. But I think the lightweight solutions that are provided in composites are integral to all of that.
Yeah, well, that's the good news for you guys, at least, that you should be okay whatever direction we go. And, and it's, without talking about policies and such, I mean, the direction's the direction, and it's good that you're somewhat insulated from the direction. But I
Yeah,
know
I think
that,
we have a solution to
yeah,
provide whatever direction it goes.
yeah, which is great. Now, as far as we talked a lot about it with data and all that side. Um, but one thing, and before we close, is with people, as far as the level of the type of expertise of the people that you're seeing now. Before it was you had guys go in, they just did manual, like when you started, you took a steering wheel, you're adhesive, you're putting it on something. Where now, what would you say really when you talk about, somebody coming into the business from low to mid level, is, I mean, what type of technology should they know? They probably do, just having the phone, right? But is there what should they know?
Well, I think certainly, we touched on controls engineering, but skilled trades, there's a huge deficit. All of my colleagues in across multiple industries struggle with recruiting good, solid, machine repair folks, skilled
Mhm.
trades people. They're just not out there. A lot of my friends that are in the consulting, contracting, repair business are booming and they're in demand wherever they can go wherever they want. So I think skilled trades is huge and companies are paying. I mean, if a maintenance guy isn't making a six-figure salary, he's in the wrong place. That's just the way that it's gone, and there's a huge deficit there because everybody convinced us all in the 80s and 90s that you needed a 4-year degree and a desk job. And so everybody pursued that, and the guys that want to turn wrenches and fix things, but the guys that are turning in wrenches and fixing things also have to be adept in some type of controls, PLC, automation, that thing as well. I think if you wanted to be guaranteed a job, that is critical. I think the machine operator jobs that can be automated will continue to be automated to a greater extent. But I think that we're seeing a lack of people that want those jobs as well. We're not seeing a big influx of people that want to come in and run machines. So you kind of have to keep up with the automation just to keep up with the declining workforce. And a lot of that workforce is being sent out of the country right now. And then just keeping up with AI, as we mentioned, I think it'll become a bigger and bigger part of it. But I think it'll become more and more intuitive, where I think in the near future, you're going to just demonstrate for an AI camera a job and it's going to generate work instructions and step-by-step processes and probably write your PFMEA and control plan for you just based on watching you do a series of activities and then spit it out for you. I don't think any of that will be written manually in the next 5 years.
That'll really help productivity and also help people coming in because they'll have the right instructions in front of them. Because one thing that I've seen for in many companies, they don't have that written down very well, and it's more tribal. It's one of those things. It's passed on more through orally than it. Again, here's some documents, but it's really having it in simple terms just makes things more productive getting someone up and going because that's like with anything getting someone up and going is probably you probably run into that still getting somebody new in getting them up to speed must take a little time.
It does. I mean, training is, I mean, it's hard to put a tangible dollar value in the loss in productivity and the expense of onboarding someone. And there's lots of statistics out there on what it really costs.
Hmm.
I spend a lot of my time, a lot of my days with my teams, every new facility that I go into, taking habits and tribal knowledge and turning them into systems and operating procedures. And I think, as we mentioned, as you can take a camera and an AI system and just watch what's happening and generate created content and documentation videos that are completely AI generated of someone doing that task. And if you wanted it zoomed in and looked at a different way where you could see, you don't have to go out and re-record that video. You just tell AI to show it to you differently on how that's happening. That's all coming very quickly. I mean, they're doing 2 hour full this Guac 4 is doing 2 hour movies based on a very simple set of instructions, and it just goes out and gives you content that would rival a Marvel movie today. And you're going to be able to
It's
do that
crazy.
with work instructions that are video content that are above your machines that show an operator how to do it and can explain it in ways that we wouldn't even think of, right? One of the things when you're training somebody to write a work instruction, the smart person will want to write it for smart people. And they don't want to write in a way that can be digested by the consumer that's trying to learn how to do it. And
Right.
you got to, beat the lawyer out of them to be able to write this work instruction in simple terms, but it being meaningful when you can just tell AI what you're trying to do and it will generate that content for you. I mean, I write all
Fantastic.
my job descriptions now with AI. I tell it exactly what I'm trying to do, what my company is, what the job is, and it will go out to the internet, pull everything that it needs to know about that job, what the industry says about that job, and generates the content. You take out the couple of things that don't make sense, and you just wrote a job description in a minute and a half.
Well, I think that's probably a good place to follow up and close here. So really following up, first, thanks for being here. This has been very entertaining for me. I can keep going, so I have to stop myself sometimes. I think you're basically on the cutting edge of AI, at least from my opinion. And I see that I mean this is probably where most people will be in a few years. I think you're ahead of the curve on that. So thank you for all your information on
Thanks for letting me
on
share.
that. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to say to our audience before we say goodbye.
No, I think we covered the topics. If there's anything that I can do to be more insightful in the future, and I'm sure that our learning curve is going to be exponential from here on out. So, if we touch base in, 6 months or a year, it's going to be a whole new world. Well, who knows where it can go?
Well, thank you. This has been very enlightening.
All right. Thank you.